Hello, everyone. It's obviously a massive honour to be invited back to this event. I feel, after watching Bob Hoffman this morning, I'm actually sort of the milder version of him. I thought that presentation was excellent. Did everyone here watch it? Did you watch it?
Yep.
Audience, not that I can see you. Did you watch? Yeah, I can see some hands up. Good, because we're going to reflect on some of the finer points that he made regarding the sort of programmatic ecosystem in the digital marketing industry. So that's good that you've seen it. But we're also going to debate or discuss really how the sort of the digital marketing should be sort of executed, if you like, within the modern marketing mix. And for those of you who don't know me, I hate words like modern marketing because marketing science really hasn't changed much in the last sort of 40 to 50 years. But what has changed, as you all know, is the explosion of data, consumer habits, technology, and the dominance of 2 or 3 companies who are powerful enough to shape this industry. Now, I'm going to set the scene, and we're very fortunate here, if these slides pop up. There we go. We're fortunate here to have the latest IAB statistics that were done by PwC on spend data from 2021. These are really hot off the press. These are yesterday's stats, actually, so we're really fortunate to have them. This is UK data, but I imagine that they replicate quite consistently around Europe. I guess some of the sort of major stats here are the digital ad spend saw the biggest growth it's seen for 15 years in 2021, with investment up at 41% year on year to 23.5 billion. Spend on display was up 53% to 9.7 billion. And video, I think the next slide here, this is mobile, I believe. That's the video one. Sorry, there you go. This is the overall spend. But video accounted for the vast majority of display growth, up 58%. Surprisingly, which you've already seen, 60% of that was on mobile, which was I thought were quite a lot in my view. And finally, and this is my pet hate, which we're going to talk about a little bit as well, is search accounted for, this is the stat, 50% of overall online ad spend, which is a bloody lot, isn't it? So, Jules, you get a nice, easy first question here. Do introduce yourself to the audience and tell us, why do you think we're seeing these staggering spend statistics, and where is the money coming from?
Hi, everyone. So, Jules Kendrick. I'm MD for UK and Europe for the Trustworthy Accountability Group. For those that don't know, we're the global not-for-profit cross-industry body running industry standards across fraud, brand safety, and malware. So to answer that question, I mean, essentially, advertisers go where the eyeballs are, where the audiences are. So, and that's what we're seeing online. So, I mean, I don't know about the audience. I mean, I have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old who don't know what the TV is. They don't watch TV. They certainly don't engage with it. So budgets are moving, especially from TV into digital. But ultimately, that's where most advertisers' demographics are. That's where they'll find their audiences. And it's also where they can be incredibly creative. So we look at the video spend increasing. I'm sure we'll talk about attention and data and measurement, but video enables them to reach an audience in a very creative way and build brand. So that's where I'd see that growth, and we'll just continue to see it.
Yeah, okay. I do have reservations about this. If you look at the digital ad industry and the incredible growth that it's experiencing, yet it sells impressions, which is basically humans seeing ads. We're not really changing our viewing habits on digital a great deal in terms of how many websites we go to and how long we spend on it. And I actually had stats last year that showed that. Yet spend on digital is still going up. So I'm always a little bit dubious about how and where this money is going, because where are all the eyeballs coming from? But that's my personal sort of my view on these figures, and I'm sure they will continue to grow. I'm just not too sure, not too sure how. One of the things from this data, and this is actually shown from US data, not from this stuff on ad spend, is that the vast majority of growth was taken up by obviously Google and Facebook and Amazon. So Emma, you get a chance to introduce yourself obviously to the audience, but is that a healthy sign? We're seeing these staggering numbers, yet it's 2 or 3 players who are taking the vast majority of that growth.
Thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is Emma Newman and I am the Chief Revenue Officer for PubMatic for Europe, Middle East and Africa. And for those of you who don't know, PubMatic is an independent SSP and technology platform. So, to answer your question, Justin, no, it's not healthy. And I mean, a duopoly or a triopoly or however many of these large walled gardens we're going to end up with, it's not healthy in any industry. And it's definitely not healthy in digital advertising. And whilst I'm not surprised by the numbers, I do find it quite frustrating because, candidly, I've never met a media buyer who's told me that they want to spend more money on Facebook and Google. Quite the opposite. Most people are telling me we want to move money away from Facebook and Google, and we have seen those shifts in pockets, certainly. And then you say, well, why don't you then? Because you've got the money, you've got the power. Why aren't you moving your spend away from, these large walled gardens? And I often hear, well, there's no alternative because they provide us with the reach and they provide us with the access and they provide us with the data and, yada, yada, yada. And I think a few years ago that was probably true. Maybe there weren't any alternatives. But I do think the industry as a whole has really worked hard to try and provide alternatives to Facebook and Google and now Amazon. If you think about how premium publishers are working together much more collaboratively to be able to provide access to premium inventory and premium audiences at scale, which is obviously one of the things that people have used the walled gardens for. We've seen an uptick of that. I think Ozone in the UK is a really good example. They also use it to give access to more data. And also the tech partners have worked really hard to provide alternative addressability solutions so that buyers can target in obviously a compliant way across scaled premium inventory that's not part of the walled garden. So I guess my question is to the brands, which is, why aren't you using the alternatives?
Well, we'll come on to that actually, because what we're going to do, we're going to speak to them all, and we're going to find out, reflecting on this data, but how you decide where to spend your money and why. And Jasper, you've got a good story about this because you're. So why don't you obviously introduce yourself, but also tell us about the landscape of when you came into the job and what you did to sort of change their approach to marketing.
So, hello everybody, I am Jasper Martens. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for PensionBee. And PensionBee is an online pension manager in the UK. So you can combine your pensions from your previous jobs all in one place and manage that on any device. And we started that in 2015. And we're now hopefully becoming an established brand in the UK. So to answer your question, I think why our approach at PensionBee from the start was actually we went digital because we were trying to find a solution to reach particular customers who were switching jobs. And I would say the digital landscape, as in, using one of the bigger advertising platforms, was actually a really great idea. But as you can see also from the statistics, over the years, as we were scaling up, there was like a limit of growth we would actually get through those channels. Probably more brands thought, it's going really well for them. We might want to have a slice of the action as well. And we just have seen increased inflated costs in terms of acquiring customers through those channels. And
you reached a digital saturation.
Yeah, we did. And I think a lot of brands, especially if you want to build a brand, it's probably really good to test channels, scale channels where you can, but there is a limitation of what you can do. You either start to differentiate and go above the line or start trying those channels because you need to build a brand as well. And the percentage which you spend on digital versus what you spend above the line might change over time. But if you don't, then you just end up injecting more money in those platforms. You not actually want to try new platforms. We haven't really done that, if I'm really honest. We stayed with the big ones. But it's a drug addiction.
Yeah, so you got yourself off the merry-go-round. Where did you stick your money?
TV. So actually, we started with linear TV in 2019, which you can actually measure. If you're really clever, you can. And we were quite startup-y back in the day.
You heard it here first. You can measure linear TV, okay? Accurately as well.
So we started with £30,000 per month advertising on daytime TV, cheap slots, linear TV. See if you saw at app installs or website signups. And yes, you won't be able to do that accurately, but you can see some sort of impact on a direct scale. You can then convince your management team that this probably might be a good channel to invest in, and then you start to scale up.
Do you know your split between sort of brand versus performance? Do you have that in your...
So because we're a public company since last year, so these numbers are kind of like available. Our total marketing spend for 2022 is between 17 and 20 million pounds. And I would say roughly 40% now is performance, 60% is brand. But 2 years ago, if you would have asked me that question, it would be 80% performance.
That's the classic 60-40 split,
yes.
isn't it? So Thanos, obviously you get a chance to introduce yourself to the crowd now. Now you're like the poster child for digital, aren't you? You've come from mobile. You worked for a digital first brand. That is very much in your core and in your DNA. Tell me about your experience. How do you justify your spend, and how do you approach marketing? Because you know about the all and sundry of digital performance and branding.
Well, hi, by the way. I'm Thanos from OPAP. I cannot see you, so hi. I very much agree with Jasper. Is exactly what he's saying. If you want, I mean, performance marketing and digital marketing is great, but there is a ceiling into the growth. If you want to go to the next level, you need to invest into branding. So I've seen it many times. I'm 100% sure now that if you do just performance, if you do just digital, you have a ceiling in your growth. So go and put some TV, even if you cannot measure it as accurately as you think. For us, for sporting brands, sports betting brands, sponsorships are massive. They build trust. So offline media will build trust, and then performance will grab the acquisitions.
Okay, that worked well because you were with a betting company, which is almost like a commodity, right? And then all I saw you was association with football, loads of sports, sponsorships was a huge one, and it was that basically your branding activity, and then your job was to just hoover up with
exactly.
Activation.
Exactly. I mean, the split was always 70-30, 65-35, depends on the market.
Did you notice the efficiency of your digital marketing campaign improve when branding was when your branding metrics were high?
Yeah, 100%, especially when you scale.
Yeah.
There's a saturation after a while, and you think this is it, that's what we can do. But as soon as you inject branding inside, the scale is massive.
Okay, so Manuel, now you're an interesting one because you're in the sort of luxury area, fancy pens. I hear you're going to give a pen to every single panelist and moderator today. Brilliant. Now, your job is quite interesting because you're the sort of the data number cruncher. You're looking to find which media shifts the needle, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Manuel here, working at Montblanc. And exactly my position is to provide data, try to get as reliable as possible, even though there are a lot of challenges that we have been discussing throughout the day. But indeed, to see from the investments that we are doing, performance tends to be a bit easier to see the impact short term. But then there is the big question about brand equity that for us it's key. Because we are an aspirational brand, even though the pens are very nice on a utility basis, we also need to make them desirable for people to be willing to spend as much in a pen as our price tag requires. And indeed, the quick question is how to, we have limited budgets as everyone, how to properly spend it online and offline. And on the online, where are the budget ratios that make sense, which platforms have indeed a higher impact, hopefully on sales, but then we also need to understand the full customer journey, and that's why we have an attribution project that helps with that. To, as you said, try to see what moves the needle in our investments, to try to optimize them.
So when you're doing this and you're doing this analysis and you're looking at you understand you need branding in order to be efficient on digital, yet you need to measure all channels consistently. What's the biggest challenge to achieving that?
Yeah. So, for example, there are channels which are further away from the session, so the first-party data that we are able to get, or the transaction, which is even more reliable. In here, we are talking about, for example, display and social. And the key is to understand the impact of these investments, for example, in search demand. Because when a user search for us, they click, and hopefully GA will be able to track that, so that becomes easier. But what happens before that search is tricky, and that's why we need these proxy measurements to see the impact of seeing a ad without clicking on it.
Yeah, you're paying Google for search and then using their analytics to measure their success. I can see his problem. So on that note, which Emma raised, how do you... Because I've got a bit of a theory about search. I think that when you talk to the entire industry, agencies and brands alike, they all say, you switch it off, you're an absolute lunatic. Like, everyone is convinced it is the holy grail. So therefore, I'm very suspicious about actually the efficacy of it and whether it actually drives that much. And Jasper, I know you got some experience in this. You removed some search terms, some corporate search terms. What happened to your website traffic?
I think a lot of brands would encourage when there's brand search on your own brand to actually be up there, and then if everybody will tell you if you stop doing that, you would start to see a drop because people will click on your competitor. That didn't happen.
No.
So there is no difference. And it saved us a tremendous amount of money by just not bidding on our own brand. So that's one. And if you've built your brand, people know who you are. So they will search for you. People are not stupid. They won't click on another competitor.
Well,
so that's what we see in our own data sets. But also, we don't bid on competitor brands anymore.
Okay.
Because we also know that people who do click on it, they click on it by accident. They don't convert in the end. They just cause extra calls to our customer service because they think they're dealing with brand number A, but actually they're dealing with brand number B. So there's a lot of things you can simply avoid by not doing that.
Okay, Manuel, fancy turning off your search terms?
Yeah.
Save a bit of money?
So about that, I agree with Jasper and with you. However, we pay for our brand terms. We don't bid on competitors because at that moment, if someone is searching for a Rolex, like having our search, especially on search, our search head there won't make any difference. The customer already has something in mind and will be really tough. It will be a copy on search that will change that. But we still bid on our keywords because we want to get the data about the search demand, and we are willing to pay the price for it. Also because then we are able to understand the customer journey within the website.
They hook you in with analytics, don't they?
Yeah.
If the product was that good, they wouldn't need to hook you in with analytics as a bolt-on. That's my issue with it. It's a filthy sales tactic and a very good one, but it's also like, if it is that good and you're paying for it and you're getting the results, you shouldn't have to do that.
True.
That's just my view on it.
And to the point of people not distinguishing so well ads and organic results, we had people in our HQ that were clicking on the ads and so we had to block the IP address. And so just to prove that even people that should be aware of not clicking in the ads, they end up clicking. So I know it might not be a key differentiator on performance having the ad, but yeah, there is the data side that perhaps makes it worth it well.
I think that's very brave from Jasper, switching off. And this is the type of testing that we should do to understand the attribution even more. Switch off, switch on thing. It sounds extreme, but actually can work. To that point, I very much think it depends. How mature is the brand? How good is the product? How competitive is the market? I've seen in the past, when you don't have the best product or the biggest brand and switch off the search, you disappear. It's like you close the shop. Nobody comes to the website. On the other side, when you have a very mature brand, a big brand, that you have invested a lot in other channels, and you have a good product, and it doesn't matter if it's super competitive or not, you lose up to 10%, which if you think how much you spend, it makes sense to do it.
So there you go, Emma. I've just saved a lot of money going to Google based on the search, and
Thank you very much.
Implore, the clients in the room to also give that search. Just give it a go, because you can always buy it back, can't you? You can always try it out, and I'm sure Google are going to have a word with me afterwards about the sales technique I'm giving this audience. So Emma, you'll get the final word on this, because you don't like the word funnel. Well, here we're talking about the funnel. Here we're talking about the branding element, where you're creating that desire, that demand, and then you're hoovering up with digital, which should be the practice of marketing. But you don't like that term funnel, do you?
Well, I don't think that the customer journey is linear anymore. So and I've not been in market, I'm an ex-marketer, so I have some experience in this. But the whole point of a customer journey now is it's fluid. It's not linear. So if we plan and think linearly, then actually, how do we measure? Because if we're planning and buying and thinking and measuring in a funnel, but the customer is going all over the place and it's more sort of circular, then actually, how do you know what's driving your sales at the end of the day? So that's why I don't like the funnel particularly.
Okay, well, we talk about measurement and attribution a little bit later, so we'll come on to that. So clearly, to be a successful brand, you need to have a strong brand, and you need a trusted medium to advertise on in order to build that brand. Do we all accept that that's a true statement?
I feel like I'm going to be set up here.
They won't nod because they know what's coming. So the WFA, Jules, you're gonna get this next question. The WFA met about 2 weeks ago. One of the big areas there, back onto the internet and digital, is that there's a huge mandate to sort of clean up the internet. I'm not going to read all this out, but this is a quote here from the new CMO of Unilever, who hasn't got a CMO title. Don't ask me why; it's kind of all silly. But anyway, she came out with this comment, and the last part there was to make sure that people have an experience that isn't riddled with scams. And she's reflecting on the internet that basically was built by advertising technology. And in order to deliver the branding needs of clients, because they need a strong brand, we need to build a better internet, and that's basically or better digital services, and that's basically what the WFA were talking about. So Jules, you're going to get this question. Your organisation is central to trust for advertisers. So advertising can believe what they're being spent in. So how can we build better trust within the system? Like what are we doing that's not working, and what should we be doing?
So, I mean, trust is key, and in any part of your life, to build trust, you need to know who you're working with, who you're dealing with, who you're in a relationship with, and you need to be able to trust them. So for me, it's about responsible advertising. It's about working with trusted partners. It's about, we've talked about using your marketing mix to trial different things and to see what works. But ultimately, and TAG's goal for the industry is to continue to identify the challenges and address them as an industry. There's no one part of the supply chain that is responsible to address fraud or brand safety or malvertising. We need to do it collectively. And Unilever, for example, is a good, they are a good example. Unilever will only buy through TAG certified channels. So they're making that step forward to ensure that we know who we're working with. We know that they are adhering to standards that have been set by the industry. It doesn't mean that the bar is necessarily high enough yet, but we need to bring the whole industry with us on the journey. We need to raise the bar. But if you're not working with, if you're working with a supply chain that isn't adhering to industry standards, the question is, why are you? Like, you don't know who those, who they are, if they adhere to brand safety principles, if they are reducing invalid traffic, if they are preventing malvertising. So that's the first step, which is we do need to make the industry safer. We do need to work across the supply chain, and so that we're not sitting on this stage in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years' time talking about the same thing. There are standards out there to address the challenges. But we as an industry self-regulate. So we are asking everyone to do the right thing. we don't have a legal requirement to do the right thing. We're not forcing people. It's about triggers that ensure them to do that. And I always sort of put that into three groups. It's one, those businesses that do it because it's the right thing. It's the right thing to be adhering to industry standards, to raising the bar on brand safety, to be preventing fraud. We then have those that do it because their competitors are doing it, and so they don't want to be left out. And then the third and unfortunately largest group is that they're doing it because there's an ROI in it, is that we won't get money to, we won't get Unilever's money if we don't have the standard. So it's about trusted partners, ultimately. Don't put your money somewhere where you don't know who's going to be getting it.
Okay, so this is the one issue I want to resolve, and Bob Hoffman raised it this morning. It's the two sides issue. You have Bob and independent studies, even PwC, saying fraud is a 60 billion market. Looking at your website, you have that ANA study from 2019 saying it's 6 billion. I mean, how can we build trust when we can't even settle on how big the problem is? Like, how big is the problem?
I mean, that is our biggest challenge, is we don't know how big the problem is. And everyone has their own agenda. So I think you're referring to the Jupiter research, which says it's 60 billion. But if you interrogate that data, it's not very robust. The ANA study is way more robust. So, fraud is an issue, but you can significantly reduce the amount of fraud by buying through tag certified channels, for example. So we run research every year in different regions, Europe, APAC, the US, and we look at, this year in Europe, we'll be looking at 25 billion page impressions, which are supplied by 3 of the large agency holding groups. And when you buy through the industry standards, you reduce your level of IVT from 9% by using just one tag certified channel to below 1%. So low, it's actually 0.69% of fraudulent traffic. Mm-hmm. That's so that number that the 60 billion from Jupiter, or even from the ANA study, that, I'm not saying that fraud isn't there, but an advertiser doesn't have to go anywhere near it if they work with trusted partners.
Okay, so you're disputing the 60 billion?
100%.
So we self-regulate this industry. I think we can all agree that I don't think that's working. I think we saw that
I disagree, actually. It is working because we've massively reduced the amount of fraud. What it means is that the journey's not over. Mm-hmm. So if you look at where we were to where we are, we've made a significant impact. We've self-regulated. We have, over 300 companies in the supply chain adhering to these standards, which are independently validated. They're not marking their own homework. They're an auditor coming in to ensure that they're meeting those standards. So I think as an industry, we have made a lot of inroads into self-regulation.
Okay.
But yeah, we're not there yet. But we're quite a young industry. I know, I've worked in digital since day one. I used to work in print before it even happened, but we're still young and we're still growing.
Yeah.
I know you're going to say we're not that young, but we are, if you compare us to other advertising mediums, we're still young. So we've still got challenges to address, but
20 years old.
Yeah, but
you're basically an adult.
Well, my daughter's 20 this year and she's a baby, so
yeah. Well, they'll still get thrown in prison if they do something naughty. So because they're technically an adult, I don't think that's a good excuse that the industry's young. Don't allow that to be an excuse for.
It is not an excuse; it's a reason.
It is a reason. So panelists, what do you believe? Like this is tough, isn't it? Like, do you have faith within the sort of programmatic and digital industry based on there's conflicting numbers, and it's not Jules' fault. She's doing what she can from her perspective, and then Bob's doing what he can. Like, who do we believe? Thanos, go for it.
Yeah, makes sense 100% what Jules just mentioned, right? It just feels that the fraudsters are always ahead of us. Like on everything that I saw happening, the up marketing was massive, programmatic. They were always one step ahead. So I think we have to spend resources and time and money to become more clever than them, if possible. Otherwise, we will always, as brands, we always go for the extra scale. We always go for the incremental traffic, incremental acquisitions, whatever that is. So we will always look for that, these areas that maybe are not as regulated as Jules mentioned, but we need this. So we need to become more clever to avoid this in the future.
Okay. Jasper?
I think, I've been stung a few times.
Do you trust the system?
No, I don't. But I'm trying to trust the system. It's just that from experience in the last 2 years, we've had a couple of instances where first of all, there were a couple of instances where we just simply saw that things didn't really work out as it was promised. And I think we are a startup effectively. And so we all new to this. So I think I would say the onboarding itself wasn't that great. However, having said that, we've now got our own data platform where we do media mix modeling. And now with some of the programmatic advertising, I can start to see the impact it's having on certain channels or in terms of our baseline figures. So that trust is coming back. I think it's something that just takes time. But yeah, been stung before. Also, and maybe we get to that in a minute, I don't know, but it's the fact that what makes me extremely nervous as a financial product, that my ad, my creative might end up somewhere where I don't want it to be, and I have no control over it. I'm actually now at the moment have a customer really angry. We'll probably take it to the newspaper now because our ads are appearing on YouTube, where we are promoting hate. We are funding hate. As a brand, it's just not a really nice position to be in. So I felt really stung again last week.
Yeah, that's not a good situation to be in. Emma, I see you're chomping at the bit.
Sorry.
No, because actually you've said something that I think is really pertinent, which is you say that you've got no control over where your ads are appearing, but actually you do if you work with the right partners. So, you need to understand, and I would encourage everybody that is part of this industry, certainly the brands and the agencies and the publishers to some degree as well, is understand who's in your tech stack, right? And it's going to take, unfortunately, a little bit of effort on everyone's part. You're going to have to start asking some questions of your media agencies or whomever it is, and actually ask them who's in my tech stack, and ask them how they are planning and buying your media. And if you want to avoid appearing on YouTube, then ask them to work in a way that enables them to do more programmatic direct, because there are ways that you can take back control. And we've been working very hard, and has as most people in the industry, to enable that control for both the brands and the buyers and the publishers. But you've got to really understand who's in your tech stack, because if you understand who's in your tech stack, you're going to have more control, you're going to have more say, and you're going to know what's going on. So you can avoid things like, unfortunately, your advertising appearing against hate.
Emma, just continuing with you, Bob came up with this example, which was the sort of the latest scandal, if you like, for digital advertising, and it's here. It's the Gannett situation. Now, would you say that's the client's fault then with this? So this situation, there's billions of ads basically didn't land in the places it should have landed for about nine months. None of the systems detected it. Nobody noticed. It went on. Clients got charged. Is that the client's fault?
I don't think it's anybody's fault.
It's someone's fault.
Not necessarily. I think that, it is...
I think that's the industry not taking responsibility, that comment.
Okay. I think that, all right then, if you...
Kindly.
I think it's potentially people not asking the right questions and not holding people accountable.
Okay.
So I don't think it's anybody's fault per se. I don't think you can blame... And what I mean by that is you possibly can't lay the blame at any one individual's door. Mm-hmm. But I do think that perhaps if the client had had more knowledge of who was in their tech stack, where their advertising was going, looking at the data or asking for the data, because the data's there. Most reputable players will provide data, be it log level data or whatever it may be. But actually, lots of clients ask for it and then don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And it's reams and reams of data. So what you really want to do is build a relationship, a trusted relationship with everybody that's in your tech stack. So you can go to your SSP or your DSP or whoever it is and say, look, I've got this data. What does it actually mean? And what are we going to do about it? Because having all of those protocols in place is just the first step, because you can have them in place. You can't then just put them in a drawer and forget about them. You've actually got to continue to work with them and monitor them and look at them. So, do I think it's... I don't think it's any one player's particular fault. I think it's a case of people not trusting and talking, sharing and understanding data.
I would blame myself first on this one. This is an extreme example. I mean, I cannot even believe it, but how on earth can you miss that?
Well, I mean, I'd step in a bit on that, because it's the problem with this is it's brought up an issue that the information would have been there in the log file data, but no one would have been looking at that log file data. So here the likelihood is they used a single SSP, and it wouldn't have been flagged up in the ads.txt because it would have been in as Gannett as opposed to the specific domains. But we're a tech-driven industry, and we can use tech to solve these challenges. So rather than like, whose fault is it? The fact is that it is hard to say. It was a mistake. It was basically misplacement. So it was a mistake. No one did it. It was not fraudulent. They didn't do it on purpose. It's not fraudulent traffic. It was just misplaced advertising. They don't adhere to the standards for starters. So that's the first step, which is adhere to an industry standard, and this is less likely to happen. But one of the examples, so TAG is looking at how, is running an industry initiative looking at how distributed ledger technology can help us address this, look at the log file data, have matched publisher domains. So while it's not 100% foolproof, it would have shown up. There is a mismatch in the publisher domain. This needs to be interrogated, and it wouldn't have lasted 9 months. So this is the thing with our industry. And when I talk about it, the fact that we're still young is that new challenges come up which haven't been addressed before, and we need to collaborate as an industry to address them. There are ways tech can help us to address this, but it's making sure that instead of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, like, this is a terrible thing that's happened, we're a terrible industry. We're not. There are new challenges, and we address them as they come up. So that there is potential for this to not happen again. But again, if they had been adhering to industry standards, then the likelihood of misplacement wouldn't have happened, one would hope.
Do you think the industry is really set up, though, to spot these? Because is it incentivized to really spot this sort of level of malpractice? Or you're calling it ineptitude. Thanos, you're saying it's the client's fault?
I'm not talking ineptitude for starters. Basically, it's just something that, for me, the marketer should be interrogating the log file data. That's their money.
Okay.
So that's what I would say is that this was a mistake. So when you say whose fault is it, it depends whether you think if someone makes a mistake, then there's fault underlying there. I don't, but I think that what it is for me, if I was spending millions of dollars, I'd want to know where that was going, and I'd be interrogating the log files to make sure it was going where I wanted it to go.
Okay.
Agree 100%. Like, I would straight away, blame myself in terms of how did we miss that? We have all the tools, we have all the data there, and that's the learning of this is visualization of data is such a huge and important thing.
Yeah.
That we have so many platforms, 6, 7, 8 platforms in order to run a campaign. But you need to have the data in a format that you can use it to optimize and avoid this kind of thing. So that's my takeaway from this. Visualization of data is actually very underrated, and it should be on the forefront of what we do, because it's a very complicated ecosystem.
I just think a lot of marketers not have the knowledge per se to actually do the scrutinizing of the data of what's going on. If I would buy out-of-home advertising or any other channels, I'd probably be personally, I'm just really honest, like I'm much more comfortable in doing the due diligence there, and mistakes happen there as well, and it's the way they respond to it, how we can resolve it. We had an incorrect tube car panel being placed last month. These things do happen. I think I would have much more problems or issues in actually figuring out how this actually happened from the client side. So I probably need to be taken by the hand by the actual platform that's helping me to do this.
Yeah, and actually, do you know what? Trusted partners will do that for you. But I think part of the challenge is sometimes, you've got to trust them, right? So, and but then you need to be selective about who you're working with, and you've got to ask the right questions. But I think part of the challenge is sometimes, because despite what you say, Justin, it is still a relatively new medium. To your point, if this had been an outdoor, you'd be much more comfortable because it's been around, we're comfortable with it. It's
independently measured.
All right. But we are still new. We are still relatively new when you start comparing us to outdoor and radio and TV and all of those things. So I think part of the challenge is, and I think as an industry, we need to talk about this more, is that how do we help educate the brands so that they know what they don't know, and then how do we help close those knowledge gaps?
And going back on your point about spending with Google and Facebook, something that Bob said and a few other people have said, that because of situations like this, clients feel a bit more comfortable spending within the walled gardens. I don't know if this is true, but they spend within the Google and Facebook because they feel like that this sort of stuff doesn't occur. They can trust it more, which is bizarre. But
He just ended up on hate sites.
Yeah, I know. But this is just what I heard. I don't know if it's true. But speaking on trusted sort of systems and understanding the system, this came up, the poo funnel. I'm going to call it the poo funnel. Does this represent reality? $1 and then 3 cents goes into working media. Who wants to address that? Jules?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to Bob's presentation this morning, which I thought was. I'm glad he ended with a positive, and that there is some benefit to the internet to us all. But yeah, I mean, this is serving an agenda. You know, the poop funnel. Sorry, as an English person, I find it hard to say poop, but it's like, I mean, that's potentially worst case scenario if you're using bad actors and not working with trusted partners. I'm sure that there are marketers potentially on this panel or in the room who could say that has happened, but I can't actually see that slide, but I can remember it from this morning that. I'd question the fraud. If you, as I mentioned already, if you buy through tag certified channels, your fraud should be less than 1%. So
he's using solid data on all those points, though.
He's not actually, because one of the things he's talking about is he calls it ISBA in the UK. We call it ISBA, which is the for those that weren't there, which is the trade body for advertisers. For example, you talk about the 15% delta. That's just they were unable to match it end to end. So that 15% delta is not, that money hasn't gone. It's not just disappeared. It hasn't been stolen. So there is an issue with our ability to track across the supply chain. And as I mentioned, Tag TrustNet, the initiative that we're running, we can match the data. So we have been able to match the data end to end, and we're not seeing those kind of losses. And that's with the ANA study, which is continuing on from ISBA. We're going to be running just over $1.5 billion worth of ad revenue through the TrustNet to ensure, to look at where that money is going. So I think that poop funnel will be, it just won't look like that. I'm not saying that there is money, you have to pay for the services that you go through. And I'm not saying that some of that money could be better spent, but to me, if you're a marketer and you're spending, that's your funnel, then shame on you, because it shouldn't be. It doesn't need to be.
Marketers, does this make any sense to you? Do you agree with it? Disagree with it? Think it's nonsense? Is it a non-issue? Don't care? Move on? Manuel?
Yeah, I would say clearly an issue. I'm seeing a lot of onus of the tracking part being put under the brand, but I think that that's why perhaps some regulation would help, is that to set the safety nets for people that are starting the investment on digital, and I think it's important. Of course, who is more advanced should be able to do the work themselves, but for everyone to have at least the minimum safety, I think it will be important that. Also, another topic that was already mentioned is about the walled gardens. So incentives are to start to have less visibility on some data, and that will increase the lack of visibility that brands have on their investments. So it's true that there is a trend towards trust because the customers are demanding that, but I think it will be a good thing that all players are on that direction also, not only because customers want, but because it's indeed the best for society, even though this sounds very...
No, I agree with that. Thanos, you're an expert in this value chain, and what do you see with that? Do you see all your components?
I wish it was a little bit less complicated.
Right.
As a brand, I wish, what Emma said is very correct about choosing the right partners. And if you choose the right partners, that will be a lot better. I just wish we needed less partners on the whole chain.
Less partners, Emma. No, big issue in the industry is the tech tax that's occurring particularly in premium publishing. I hear that there's a lot of pressure on that, and those rates may come down. Can you talk about that at all?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to change what we call it, because it's not a tax.
Agree.
So, you have a choice, to be honest. You generally don't have a choice to pay taxes. You do have a choice as to whether you want to participate in this or not. And the decision you make should be based on the value that you get from the partners that you're working with. So if you understand your partners and you take the time to see the value they're bringing to you, and yes, there is a cost to working with partners because, it costs us quite a lot of money to R&D and research and resources and all of those things, but we do it because we believe that we can bring value. Now, at the end of the day, it's your decision whether you consider us to bring you value or not. And if you think we do, then why shouldn't we be paid for doing that? If you feel you've got too many people in your tech stack, again, go and interrogate your tech stack. I think that there's been a lot of work around SPO, so supply path optimization, I think has done quite a lot to tackle some of this, because people are actively reducing the number of partners that they're working with. By the way, also on the other side, that's really good for the environment, but that's a whole different conversation. So I think that supply path optimization has gone a long way to doing this. I think that the ISBA PwC study, I don't want to use the terminology wake-up call, because I don't think it was a wake-up call, because we knew there was a challenge. I think what it's done is given us an impetus to be more collaborative as an industry to try and address some of these things. And a lot of it is about taxonomy, and we're not using the same taxonomy, which is very difficult then to integrate the data. So, I think that you shouldn't think about it as a tax. You should think about it as paying for service and value. And if you don't think you're getting the service and value, then choose not to work with that partner.
So are the value services fees going down or up? It's just that I know from premium, especially now we're into video, the cost of producing premium inventory is expensive, and brands need to be in front of premium inventory. And I know that there's a bit of pressure in the tech community. I just wondered, for your sort of global view on technology in the advertising sector, do you feel as though that there's just a lot of pressure these days, or maybe it's the same?
I think
Just a yes or no.
I think everybody in the advertising sector is feeling pressure. I don't think it's just down to the tech partners. I think, the agents are feeling pressure on their margins. Marketers are feeling pressure because the CFO is asking for a return on ad spend.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to provide that. I think it's not unique to the tech industry. I think everybody's feeling the pressure.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I think the way that you clean up some of the stuff in the digital industry is through really, really good measurement, robust third-party, independent measurement. And I have just one question to the panelists on this, because we've sort of run out of time. And it's this, it's crass, obviously, because I'm asking it. Is all sort of digital measurement just rubbish? Is that one of the big problems? Because it could solve it. If you had decent measurements, so you knew what was happening to your media, you'd be able to solve a lot of these problems. But are the measurement tools that you have today complete rubbish? Jasper?
No.
No?
No. I've got...
You spend 70% of your money on TV.
Yes, but I think...
that hasn't got a measurement problem, though.
I would say well, first of all, we've built our own data platform, and we've tried to get as good as possible a single view of that customer for those touch points. And also, our product is designed for our customers, when they join, they actually come back all the time. They check their pension balance, etc. So we build that relationship. I want to see that. So that's really important for me. So we've built that.
Okay.
And I haven't touched Google Analytics for a year. I'm not looking in that, because we've got our own.
You don't trust their analytics? You don't trust their...
It's a slightly more complicated story. We've got an app, we've got a website, and I think with Google Analytics, it's predominantly web traffic. It doesn't give you a very accurate view. Yeah. I want to see a cross-device, cross-platform, single view of the customer, so I need to bring those things together. Having said that, though, there is data I can measure, I can see. So it's not all crap. What it's important is, can I trust the source where the data is coming from? No, not from every source. I can really trust it right now. But for certain sources, I definitely can, or I think I can trust them.
Okay, we're gonna do our little fun sort of quiz thing. But do you broadly agree with what Jasper's saying there? It's not all crap, but you've got to be able to trust the source.
Yeah, I would say yes. Exactly the point. Data is not perfect, but it still allows us to get insights out of it, which is important to define strategy. Of course, I would always appreciate to have more reliable, trust even more the data sources that I get.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we shouldn't put our heads in the sand. We should look at the few insights that we have and still try to make the best out of it.
Okay.
Attribution is hard. It's a hard thing. It's very complicated. You have your MMMs, your MTAs, and it needs time, needs resources, it needs money, and not many brands understand that. And the key is managing expectations. What Emma said about the pressure from shareholders and CMOs on ROI is massive. And if we're not able to manage the expectations, that's going to go really badly.
Byron Sharp called ROI the stupidest metric. Do you agree with that?
Is that directed at me?
Anyone who wants to, just yes or no, because I've got to move on to the next bit anyway.
I think it's not perfect.
No, I don't think so either, because marketing doesn't work like that. You cannot look at the last thing that someone looked at and then they bought something and said that's what created it. I think that is a massive problem in the industry. And when directors are asking you what media moved this, it's an impossible question to answer, and it will just lead us all back to basically Google and Facebook's attribution analytics, which I don't agree with, obviously. Right, so our panelists have been brilliant. I've been really pushy. So this last bit is just, it's a bit of a laugh, some quizzes and some questions and stuff to see how smart and dialed and switched on our panelists are. The first one's nice and easy, though. We're going to look at, the question is, actually, what is the question? Oh, how much attention should be paid to attention? Quickly, because it's a huge theme in the industry at the moment. A lot, a little, don't care. Emma?
You should be paying attention to attention, because there's going to be not one single measurement or identity solution. You've got to pay attention to all of them.
It's coming as well into the programmatic world too. Attention, Jasper, you like attention? You're not paying attention to this question, it looks like.
No, I'm not paying attention at all.
No.
I have no opinion on that one.
No, not on attention? Thanos, do you like it?
I think this is where we lost our way. We became so obsessed with micro-targeting and being so specific about this side of things that we lost the value of the attention, which is a great creative, which is the user journey, all these things. Yeah. So we need to pay more attention to the attention that we do now.
You can actually get data on active attention on nearly all video advertising these days, and maybe that'll become a biometric. So I asked Karen Nelson-Field, who is a little biased. She runs a data company selling that data, and I asked her what's her view of looking at attention, and she says it's a no-brainer. So the panel has got that right. Now, the next question is, what is the stupidest marketing theory? Is it personalization or purpose? Bob Hoffman talked about personalization. Along the panel, which one is the silliest? Who wants to answer it? Jasper, which one? Just pick one.
Personalization.
Manuel? Yeah, I agree. Personalization.
100%.
Unbelievable, you lot. Come on.
Purpose.
Okay.
Just to be difficult.
I'd say, based on what Bob was saying as well, personalization, because it's what frustrates the consumer, is that they sort of feel like they're being followed around on the web. But I'm not a marketer, so I don't know.
Is the correct answer. The Peter Field did a study actually and said purpose actually does shift the needle if done correctly. The big issue with purpose is that it's often done poorly, and personalization is going out of fashion. Gartner research said 80% of marketers will have abandoned their personalization efforts by 2050. 2050 takes marketers 30 years to figure out something's crap. Okay, the next question is, what will reshape digital marketing for years to come? Panelists? Anything? Audience, you can just shout it out. What will shape it? Are you guys paying attention? Blockchain. Good answer. Is the wrong answer. Anyone else? Anyone?
Full funnel.
Full funnel?
The poo funnel.
Oh, the poo funnel. No, not the poo funnel. It is the metaverse. And yes, yeah, of course it is. That's an Adweek special. And if you require a constant stream of digital marketing blubbery, just subscribe to their daily newsletter. I have a true false here. A leading agency holding group has trademarked the term programmer metaverse in the event that that becomes a thing, programmatic into the metaverse. Is that true or false? Jasper?
Please say it's false.
If that's true, then, oh my God.
Manuel?
No, false.
to be here, I will say true.
Unfortunately, must be true.
I mean, let's be honest, it's stupid enough to be true.
See, this is the problem with the industry. I've made up something completely ridiculous and we have no idea if it's true or not. It is false. That is actually a false term. I made it up myself. The next answer is, with all this data and targeting ability, this is a good one for the audience too. Are we getting better or worse at advertising? Jules, we getting better?
Well, it depends who you're asking.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, but I mean, I know you're asking me, but it depends because is the creative getting better? Is the placement getting better?
Is the
audience
effectiveness
targeting-
of our advertising getting better?
Is the effectiveness? I mean, you're asking the wrong person, but
Well, you're on my
I know
panel.
that you're. Well, yeah, I know I'm on the panel,
Yeah.
but I look at standards, so I'm about ensuring the safety of a brand, not its effectiveness. But I'm going to say that, yeah, I mean, I love advertising, and I'm an advertiser's dream. So I'm going to say,
You can
as
say
a
yes.
consumer, I think it's incredibly effective.
Yes or no, Emma?
Well, I can see the slide, so I'm going to say no.
Okay.
The slide is there.
Oh, for Christ's sake, Emma, you're ruining it.
We can
Go
see
on.
the answer.
Okay.
Maybe yes, a little bit more, but we
yes.
definitely less creative.
Okay.
I am not optimistic, so I will say yes. I think that as a marketeer, things will get tougher. We are supposedly losing data, but we need to focus on what is really important, which is quality content and the customer. So hopefully, yes.
Jasper?
Less, because I think we are not too bold. We're not bold enough these days to really cut through with our creatives.
Jasper is the sound of reason, and if the slide works, we are getting shitter at advertising. This is a slide from Les Binet and Peter Field about campaign effectiveness. It goes up to 2016, but he talked about it recently, and he gave advertisers a 7 out of 10 in terms of their effectiveness. That is the correct answer. I've got 2 questions here, but we haven't got time. I was going to ask you whether that's sensible. The answer is no, because... fuck's sake. But the last final question, and this is the one that's on everyone's lips, and this will be very, very quick, but who are the biggest liars in the industry? Is it the media owners? Is it the media agencies or the ad tech firms? Which one do you want to pick? Bear in mind, when I say media owners, I do include Facebook, who once claimed they had more users than people in Australia. So that's media owners for you. Agencies, you've all been there. You've shipped clients dodgy programmatic reports. So there's that one. And then ad tech firms. Well, Emma, you've no doubt exaggerated the capabilities of your technology. Not anymore, obviously, because it's brilliant.
Obviously,
yeah. So which one is it? 1, 2, or 3?
No,
There is a correct answer.
No. It's panel moderators.
Yeah, yeah, we all know that. Anyone want to give an answer, or you just going to accept that is a question that you just can't address?
All of us, really.
There it is. The answer is we're all liars. We lie to ourselves. And the only people you can trust are myself and Thomas, who put on these wonderful events. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, my panel has been great fun, and they've been up for the challenge. So let's give them a massive round of applause to show your appreciation. Thank you very much, panelists.